is September 1st, 1998. This is an interview for the Vermont Folklife Center Storytelling Project, and it's an interview with Arthur Medeiros, who is of Portuguese descent and a fisherman here in Stonington, Connecticut, and we're at his home in Stonington, Connecticut. Tell me about where you come from.
Stonington. I was born here, 1931.
And you grew up around here?
I grew up here. My father passed away when I was 4 years old. And my uncle, he was a fisherman. And I really looked up to him. I thought fishing that was it. This is going back in the late 30s, 1937, 8, 9, them years. And my grandfather worked in a foundry, and the wages were very low, like $15, $20 a week. And my uncle, as a fisherman, especially in the 40s, he'd make $100, $200 a week. That was real big money in them days. So we as kids, 7, 8, 9 years old, we used to hang around the docks, got to know all the fishermen. We had a big fleet here. So I really got into it. We'd go in rowboats, try to catch fish, and we'd help fishermen as much as we could. They'd pay us. We'd be there every night when the boats come in. It was really, really something. And during the war, we had a boatyard here, used to build boats. And we'd be there every day watching them build the boats. Things were booming here in Stonington during the war. And all the way up to 1950. So I got involved first lobstering. I had my own small lobster boat. I was 13 years old. And I really liked it, but I wanted to fish. I wanted to go dragging on a dragger. So in 1947, my uncle needed a man, Carolyn Dennis. So he asked me if I'd go. I couldn't wait. So I left school and went. He didn't want me to. They all tried to talk me against, they wanted me to go to school, but I couldn't wait to go fishing. So I went, and then one thing led to another. I've been 50 years later still, till now. And I enjoyed every minute of it.
And so, how about your mother?
My mother, she went to work after my father passed away. And she tried to get me away from the docks. Naturally, it was dangerous. An 8, 9, 10-year-old kid always hanging around the docks. But at that time, we all did. All the kids, all my friends. And most of them ended up as fishermen in Stonington. And some, tragically, have lost their lives fishing. 2 of my best friends, one drowned when he was 19 years old, Arthur Medeiros. And then my other friend, Arthur Medeiros, his brother, he fell off a mast sword fishing and died. We were like every day going to school together and fish together. We did everything together. And there's a few more. We have 32 names on that memorial. But they were my 2 best friends. But there's a lot of others I knew there that along the way got into trouble, accident-wise. So it's been a glorious thing, a happy thing, fishing, but it's also been tragic times. People like Georgie Ryder got hit with a block, killed on a boat. But there's been quite a few. Like I say, there's 32 names down on our memorial over the years since I fished. And to me, that's 32 too many. So.
Were most of the kids that you hung out with Portuguese?
Most, yes. Yes. Today it's more of a mixed nationality fishing, but then it was mostly Portuguese. And quite a few people came from the Azores, settled here, came from Portugal, settled here, and they seemed to all end up fishing. They did it there, they did it here. But it's a thing that's been passed on, I like the adventure and the challenge. It was just there. And I like the change, I wouldn't want a job where you do the same thing every day. Fishing is, the weather's different, the catches are different, the hours are different. Everything, you don't know what to expect every day, really. there's so much change, and that's what I liked. And I liked the challenge of making nets, try to improve, try to catch more fish. So all that, to me, was for pleasure. You work 16, 18 hours a day and think nothing of it, because you like it. And you gotta like it to do it. And I did. So, but of course now everything's different. We started, there was no Lorans, we didn't even have a fathom meter in the 40s, late 30s. We had a sounding lead. But amazing the way these fishermen out of Stonington, the old timers, my uncle was one of them, and the Roderick family and so on, that worked without equipment, thick fog, storms, everything, and navigated, and went there, here, all over the place, without any equipment. Yeah.
It's that train again.
It's another one.
You must be used to that sound by now.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm sorry, I missed what you were saying.
No, I was talking about equipment. In them days, the fishermen came and went, in thick fog, just with a sounding lead, running time, and a compass. That's all they had. There was nothing else. And the weather reports were bad. We got caught more storms then than they do now, really, because the weather reports were really, there was hardly any till we'd get caught in them, and you did what you had to do, But there were quite a few storms, most all Stein fishermen that got caught in. But the boats there were small wooden boats by today's standards. They were anywhere from 40 to 60 foot in them days. But they went all over, and without the equipment. Of course, today it's much nicer. My boat now has all the equipment. I still own one. I had two. Rosemary R. That was my glory there. But I sold her, and she sunk 3 months later. So I own that since 1968. I bought it from Jean Rendero, and it was a good boat. She did a lot. She did everything for me, that boat. And now I own a Seafarer, which is a 55-foot boat. And I have a fellow who came right out of high school, John Reeder. He's from the old school. He's 40-some years old, but he started working for me. He's 17 years old. He's been with me ever since. So he's captain of my boat now. And we work together. I still help him with the nets and help him take out the fish every day. I'm involved, and I want to be involved with the association, all the meetings, rules, regulation, we're into all that. But it gives me something to do. So.
I'm curious, before we kind of go back into all the stuff of when you got going fishing, just about your Portuguese background. How I wonder about, if you can tell me some stories about just what it was like around here growing up with in this village that had with all of these other Portuguese people, and what was that community like? What are your memories of growing up inside of that?
Growing up in the village here with mostly Portuguese people, there were others, but it was a close-knit group, very close. There were not very many cars. You didn't need a car. We used to walk to work. We lived so close, to the docks. And there was a lot of storytelling around the docks. You talk about storms, you talk about different things. And there were arguments once in a while, but it seemed like an argument then and an argument today was like, then it was just part of everything. You'd have an argument about something and then forget about it. The next day you were good friends again. And there was a lot of closeness, I think, more so then than today. Like a man would rip his nets, and there'd be maybe 10 people sometimes helping. Everybody helped one another more so then than today. And not knocking people today, but I think people today have more family things to do, their own things home. They have little league games they go to. paint their house or whatever, maybe mow the grass. In them days, it was more hanging around the docks, a lot closer then than it is now. And people helped one another a lot, more so than today. As far as competition, you know, saying where the fish is, that they'll never change. It didn't then, it won't now. You know what I mean? Sometimes there's a little secret there, and most fishermen keep it themselves. You don't broadcast it. In them days, they didn't have a radio to broadcast anyway. But sometimes when you go close to a boat, a friend of yours, they'd go out and give a hail with their hands, you know, to where the fish were or how many they had, how many bushel they had. So that I've seen, you know, that'll never change, I don't think. And rightfully so. It's a competitive business, but friends are friends. So while you want to give the information to your friend, hope he gives it back to you some other day. So, but it was a very close-knit, we all lived, most people lived right in the borough, and everybody knew one another. There was more talk, visiting people, house to house. There was a lot of that, because there was no TV, the radio. You'd sit around and talk more than today, I think, and visit. And the talk, when fishermen meet fishermen, believe me, there's one conversation, one topic is fishing. For anywhere from the nets to the boats to the engines to the everything. And that went on and on a lot. We'd visit one another and talk. You know, you fish days and sometimes nights too, talking about it. Yeah, it was good. It was nice growing up, I thought. So.
Do you remember, you mentioned, you know, going down to the docks and that there were stories, a lot of storytelling down there. Are there, well, I have two questions.
Yeah.
One is, you know, are there people that you remember who were great storytellers, and what was it about them that made them great storytellers?
Well, I knew quite a few that were good. Most of it was about storms they were in and things like that. That's what they talk about, most of it. And of course, they went back years before me. Some of these people are all deceased now. And they talk about their first experiences, like how they fished. I remember stories of like where we used wire. We did even when I started. And they used rope. Didn't even have wire, things like that. When I was like 8 years old, there were scallops being caught. There was quite a few stories about that, you know how many. And even before my time, so many scallops right close by, and today you can't even find one, you know, stories. But basically, most of the stories were things like that, you know, about fishing.
Were there any of those stories that really stuck in your mind? Stories about a certain storm or somebody's experience?
Well, one story that really stuck in my mind, this fellow, Joe Medeiros, he passed away, God, 20 years ago. He got lost in a rowboat. He was out here in a rowboat and got lost in the winter, cold winter. He was missing. People in Stein were all concerned about him. Then he drifted, and his hands were frozen. I think he lost 2 fingers on that. He finally they found him on Long Island. He drifted. So that story always stuck. That's a true story. He got lost in that, and it's like a smoke. They call it smoke in the winter, fog, you know, from the vapor. And they couldn't find him. I think it was like 2 days, but they found him alive. He was an old-time fisherman, Staunton. That's all he ever did. Yeah.
Did he talk about what was happening to him when that was going on?
I guess he prayed pretty much, he said. I talked to him. He was a nice man, Joe Medeiros. Yeah. So that was quite an experience, you know. And the people were all concerned. There was once in a while 2 other stories. We've had boats. Years ago, we had the Russell S. She was a 60-foot dragger. She was missing. And then come to find, she was in a storm out in the Gulf, the gully we call it. And she was found up Shinnecock with no equipment, no radio. And she just went with the seas and She ended up there. She was missing. So, and then another one, the fair weather, same thing. Caught in a storm, hadn't heard from a couple of days, thought it went down. And come to find out, they found her. Another one, too, I could think of, Captain Nathaniel B. Palmer. That was during the war, or shortly after, 45, I think. She got a bomb in the net, exploded. Right, that was right off Block Island here. And there was 4 men on her. 1 survived, and the captain and 2 went with the boat. And he was mangled, legs, and he was a mess, but he did survive. So there's been quite a few things, years ago that happened. But it was dangerous. They were dragging up depth charges, torpedoes, during the war and after the war. So when you get one, you get one on deck, and you're not sure if it's alive. So you're kind of a little nervous for a while. They're looking at this thing, and you call in, report, and they say, don't touch, don't move it. The ones I've dragged up were all duds, but when you don't know that, it's a different feeling. But that's mostly the stories that I remember. I'm sure there's more, but there's so many in 50 years. Yeah. So many incidents, storms, and all that.
Well, when you were a kid hearing about this stuff, I'm just kind of, I'm thinking about what that must have been like for you as a kid to be around these people. What did that feel like? What was it like to hear about all this stuff? And why was it that you were so eager to?
There was no fear. Today there would be, my age. But young, no fear at all. That's just things happen. Them things happen. But when you go to sea, all my life, I never thought anything of how dangerous it was and all this stuff. I read about it. I read that it was one or two of the most dangerous occupations in the world, but I didn't think so. I do now. I changed, I guess, my age or whatever it is. Today, some of the things that I went through, I'd have fear today, where I didn't at all then. And I think most fishermen, there is no fear. I mean, you try to, when you're in storms, you try to do what's right. Navigating the boat and stuff, running off a sea and all that. But the fear, I think, comes with age or whatever it is, because I know my own case, I never thought anything of it. Never. Till now. Now I would, if I was back. At the end of my career, I did. I was a little leery now and then where I wasn't, like, say, from 50 on or something. I started being a little more cautious. But from 16 to 50, no. I think most fishermen, they don't think of that too much. I always thought coal mining was the most dangerous that I heard fishing was. I don't know. Give or take, one or the other, I guess. I wouldn't go in a coal mine. No way. No. But we had a few little things. I've seen boats go down. It's an awful feeling. It's an awful sight. I saw 3 boats sink, and we happened to be in the right place at the right time. Fortunately, we took the men off. The first one was the Carolyn Dennis. That picture there, yeah.
So tell me the story about that.
Well, he called Tom Williams. He was a fellow I was working with. My uncle owned the Carolyn Dennis. And my uncle and I both at the time owned the Rosemary R. And he was having a problem with leaks, so they fixed it, thought they had it fixed, and so on. So one day he called, and I was on the way into Greenport. We were selling New York, Greenport, Long Island. And he called, he said, boy, I don't know, it looks bad. He said the water was up to the floor. So I turned right around. Took about an hour to get there, but the seas wasn't bad that day. So when we got there, when I got there, the water was flush with the deck. So I knew she was going to go down. So I told him, get it. The dory was already on deck. Didn't have rafts then. He had a dory. So I said, you better get in the dory, and they slide her off. So there was no danger. They got in the dory, we put them on my boat. And then a few minutes later, she settled by the stern. And the glass, that's all you can hear is all the crackle in the glass. And down she went. It's an awful sight. The engine's still smoking, as she went down. That was my first ever, seeing a boat sink. I've heard boats sinking, but first time I ever saw one sink. Then the second time was stormy weather. That one there. That was another friend of mine, Remy Fouquet. We were off Fort Chill then, right here. It was a Sunday. I was on the way home, and I told the guys, well, we have the afternoon off because we didn't have much fish that day. And John was with me, and Tom Williams. Then I got a call from Remy, says that we're in trouble, the boat's sinking. She was blowing that day. So I radioed the Coast Guard, and I swung around, and I looked at the chart, we had like 2 hours to get to him. So I got there about same time as the helicopter, Coast Guard helicopter. So he got him in a raft, and he came over. There was 3 men on it. We took him off, and then that one there rolled, and you could see the whole bottom. Another terrible sight. It was just coming on dark as she rolled over when she sunk, and you could see the whole bottom, keel, propeller, the whole works. But the good part with all this is the men were safe, on the boat. So that was my second. And these pictures you see, I described this to an artist friend of mine. Then I've been lucky to be at the right place, the right time, I think, because it happened again. The Wee Willie, small boat, right here close to home. We were both fishing that day, and she started coming on good, the wind, 30, 35 mile an hour, something like that. Southeast rain, fog. So we're all on the way in. He was ahead of us. And there were 2 men, him, John Saws, his name is, and a young fellow, 17, 18, with him. But anyway, right ahead of us, I see it looked kind of soggy, the boat, but I didn't know if he had a lot of weight or not. I didn't know what it was. And then the waves would hit, roll off, but it didn't look right to me. Sure enough, within half mile ahead of us, she rolled right over. So I said, oh my God, I figured they're gone, the men, the 2 men. And then John said, oh, there they are. They had the oilers on, boots, the whole works. They were in the water, both of them. So we had one pad to swing the boat around, make sure the wind was right, and then I tried to get as close as I could to him so John could throw our life ring to him. So John threw the life ring, and miraculously they both grabbed it. So we got him alongside. The boat's gone. The boat's sunk. So we got him alongside, and the young fellow we got on deck, he didn't know where he was incoherent, he didn't even know what we were talking about, So I got him inside, blanket around him and all, because he was shivering. This is November. And John, he was a heavy, older man. So we had to strap him to hoist him aboard. It was just 2 of us. You couldn't lift him. So we put a strap under his arms and put the block to him, hoisted him aboard. We had an ambulance waiting, and they took him to the hospital. He stood there overnight. But that was very close. These guys were like minutes away from death. It's really something, to see, and you're happy that you were there, and that everything worked out the way it did. The wind, John throwing the life ring, everything just worked, and I was happy about that. But them are the 3, and then I had one more, my own career, one man that worked with me that fell overboard. But it was a perfectly calm day, no bad weather. He was trying to untangle the wire that was caught on his stern, and he went, with emotion and flipped overboard. But he had everything on. Oil, that's how you're rigged when you're working. Oil pants, jacket, boots, the whole works. So I was all alone on that one. I said, oh my. So, but anyway, everything again just right. I guess the tide, I had her out of gear, and I threw him the same life ring that saved these two guys, same one. Threw him the life ring. Then the question was, how do you get him up? So I because I was all alone then, because he was in the water. So I put the block, because I remembered how we got this guy up. So I put the block right on the life ring, and he held on the life ring and hoisted him up. So I went home. I said, that's enough of this. But that's my experience with them, you know, seeing boats go down and saving a few people. Just lucky to be there at the right time. So.
You know, when you say it's such a terrible thing to see a boat go down?
Yeah.
Why is that?
Well, a boat, you know, it's like, you feel good about seeing people get off naturally. You're glad you got the people. The heck with a boat. You can always get another boat. We know that, but it's still, it's an awful sight to see the way it goes down, you know. And I've seen it go down different, each one. You know, the windows pop out. It's an eerie thing. It's not something, I like boats. You know, I love boats. I think all fishermen do. And although you're very happy, of course, the men, but to see a boat destroyed like that by nature, it's something I saw three too many times, I think. And each one was different. And the stormy weather, that was near dark and real rough that day. And when she rolled over and just laying there, and finally you see her go down. But all through my career, too, there have been boats down and no one's ever heard from them. You know, that's the bad thing. You know, boats on the way in and they could run into a storm and all men lost. Boats out of New Bedford, all along the coast. There's been quite a few. That's a total disaster. We had one in Stonington, Garbo lobster boat, 5 young guys, all in their 20s, in a severe storm. They had storm warnings up, not gales, storm warnings, and they all stood out there. You know, it's things like that that are really. But when I say a boat, we're happy the men are there, but, you know, it's still, I hate to see a boat destroyed. But of course, we got a choice, naturally. But we've had our share of, for a little port like this, we've had our share of disasters over the years. Yeah. The other thing I've had, talking of disasters, is that one there, got hit by lightning. That was, I don't know, 10 years ago maybe, something like that. That was quite a thing. We're standing there, it was close, fishing on the beach here close to home. And it, you know, a squall kicked up the wind and dark and pouring rain, lightning flashing. But we fished through that, you know. But this time we were hauling the net, and we were going to come in anyway. The boats that were there came in. And then just before the doors were coming up, I heard this bang. So, geez, I went to John. I said, boy, that one was close. Because he was on deck, you know, guiding the wires. We're getting ready to bring the net in. And he says, yeah, I guess it was. He looked up, look. I see the antenna bent in half, right up top here. That was bent right in half. So then I went back in the pilot house to man the wheel, and I noticed smoke. So I lift the companionway, the door, and it was all full of smoke in the engine room. We was on fire. I said, oh boy. So I told John, I ordered him, cut the wire. Because he says, what? I says, cut the wire. You know, the net, let everything go. Because I didn't want to waste time bringing the net in. So we did that. And then we realized we had, you know, quite a problem on our hands there. So I radioed boats, but nobody would answer. You know, I put in a mayday, and no one would answer. The radar, all our equipment was out. But what I didn't know then was they heard me. But I didn't know that because it wasn't receiving. It was all knocked out. So we went. I knew there was a boat southwest of me, the Rhode Island, name of the boat, Bruce Loftus. And I knew he was there. I couldn't see him, but that's where I saw him last. So rather than go north, try to get to Steinen, I went southwest. And we ran right into him. So he took us off. You know, he came right up to us, took us off, towed the Rosemary R in, and she was smoke coming up. So they towed the boat in. And it was a wild storm, but this was all close to Stonington. So they towed it in, the firemen came, put the fire out and all that. But I was out 6 months with that. They had even the engine was ruined, and the fire come up through the deck, pilot house equipment was all ruined. And that did, boy, that really...
Just start again where you were.
Yeah. Like I said, we were out 6 months. The insurance company came down. They didn't total the boat, but I had to fix it, put another engine in, and a new deck, and then new fuel tanks, and the whole everything. But that really hurt. It took a long time now to recover from that hit. It takes years sometimes. And John, of course, I paid him to help as much as I could with the insurance money. And then he had to get a job, temporary, until we got the boat ready. So finally in January we got it back to normal. But again, we were lucky. I'm lucky he didn't get hit on deck. Lucky didn't split the boat. I don't know what can happen with a lightning strike. But I guess it came down, the antenna, and it came down the engine room somehow and started a fire. Can it crack a boat? I don't know. I think they can do some awful things, lightning. But that was a little scary event. But I think all this took its toll on my last few years, my last 10 maybe. With all this together, I just think I changed from what I was, you know, thinking about Dane. I never thought of it. But I think this all put together really made me a little leery of a lot of things in the fishing business. So then about 5 years ago, I thought I'd, stop, because I was 63. Yeah, 63. I said, I think I've had enough for a while. But I like fishing. And if I ever had to do all over again, I'd definitely fish. There's no question. You know, from there I'd start all over again. Might do things a little differently, but I'd fish. And I like the people I work with, the fishermen. They're a good group. Today they were a good group then. Of course, today we have all the rules, regulation. We're all working to fight that. Some of it, we might even disagree amongst ourselves sometimes, but I think we're all after the same thing. You know, equality for all fishermen. That's what we're looking for. All the fishermen want is to get out there, get up in the morning, go out and do a day's work, get paid. And we realize the conservation part, but we also realize there are jobs there and we want to keep them. So we're trying to work with all these councils and all that, but the bottom line is we want to work, and they got to give a little too, not just the fishermen. That's how I feel about that. But there's a lot of that. You could go on and on for hours with the rules and regulations. But I think Steinen fishermen, most of us are all on the same page. Just we might have different ways of trying to get there. And one thing I've always said all my life is cycles. And if you talk to these council members or scientists, they don't want a part of that. They say, yeah, some of it. But my lifetime, the 40s, like we'll mention fluke, that's one species. But it goes on and on with different species. The fluke in the 40s and 50s were plentiful, all kinds of fish. And then in the 60s, it got scarce again. And then 70s, they come back again. It seems like it works in cycles. The yellowtails. In the 70s, in the 40s, there were all kinds of yellowtails. Man, tons and tons of fish. Then they disappeared. I joined the Army in 1952. Yeah, 52. And one of the fishermen I really admired, George Roderick, he was a good fisherman. One of many we have here in Steiner. And he said, you're making the right move getting out of this business. This business has had it. This is 1952. So that's how it looked. It was disaster. We had people going to defense jobs in electric boat here, General Dynamics. Lots of people got out of it. So I joined the Army. So I was dying. I wanted to go to Korea and all this stuff, but I ended up in Germany. But anyway, when I come back, I'm back fishing naturally. And then in 1960, everything picked up. The 70s, the most money I ever made in my whole career was in the 70s on yellowtails. And then they disappeared. So the scientists, I agree, a lot of it was overfishing, a lot of it's pollution. There's many reasons, saving small fish. But one reason also is cycles. Oh, Mother Nature, believe me, because I've seen it all my life. I think some of the fishermen will tell you that. But of course, it's overfishing too, we all know that. But every meeting I go to, every written comment I send, I always stress one thing. We want practice conservation also, but let's not forget to save the fishermen while you're trying to save the fish. Because I think some of these people, council members, just think we gotta get these fish. But if you're gonna get all these fish and forget about the fishermen, who's gonna catch them? You gotta save the fishermen's jobs too. You gotta do both, and I think you can. So I try to stress that, in any meeting I attend.
You were mentioning before that the Fishermen's Association, and maybe you can tell me again what the full name is, but that they had started in 31. Will you tell me the story about that association and its history? And,
yeah. Oh,
because
yeah.
you were saying also that the same
Yeah.
thing of cycles.
Yeah.
In fishing with that.
Yeah.
You tell me
those
stories?
The name of the association, the Southern New England Fishermen and Lobstermen's Association. It was started in 1931 by a group called, one is still here, George Berg, Dennis Seidel, and Gene Rendero, some Rodericks were on it. There's a big group of people that started. John Smith, he was a fisherman from way back. He's one of the founders. And they thought it'd be a good idea to start an organization, which they did. And reading the yearbook, if I find it, I'd even let you'd get some information on that. But I find it interesting reading it. Like they were having problems like the price to get the fish from here to New York per barrel. They were raising the prices. Then they put a tax on them for the road tax. So they had to go to congressmen, the same as we're doing now. And they had to go to Washington, same as we did now, to try to fight these rules and regulations. Smaller scale, but the same idea. A lot of the problems we have today, they had then. And I don't know if I say it on here, but I'll try to find the books out there. You could probably pick some out of that I don't remember, but I know one thing, the problems were there, most of them that are now. Yeah.
And that had a lot to do with the regulations.
Yes, yeah. Then it went on and on, association, it's been till now. And of course, different members, it's increased. I think the membership now, I don't know what the exact number was then, but now it's about 110 members. Not all active, but there might be 70, 75 active. Then we have associate members and honorary members. But that's been on. We meet once a year, an annual meeting. And the board of directors, there's 7 board of directors, a president, vice president. And that we meet once a month, sometimes more, if need be. And then we go through everything we want to do at that monthly meeting. And then usually we have a committee, or the president, vice president will carry this through, do whatever you have to do, meet with congressmen, or could be anything. Right now we're trying to extend the dock. We got a bad surge here, at the town dock. We're trying to make more room, because we do have more boats coming in than we did. We're trying to improve. That's what every administration since then has tried to do. Try to make things better for all the fishermen. That's what we're trying to do. And every now and then you get an obstacle, you got to try to work around it or through it or something. And there's quite a bit of that. But with the help of everybody, I think we're doing all right, I think. I think we'll survive. I'm optimistic for the future. But there's going to be tough roads across, I'm sure of that. But I think we'll get rid of it. One thing bothers me that we had years ago and don't today is young guys getting into fishing. A lot of reasons for that, I'm sure. One is negative reporting in the papers, because that's all you read, how bad things are. But things for some boats are, and always was and always will be. And for other boats, things are pretty good. Boats get out and work. They're making a good living out of it. But there's no young people getting into it, and that's not good at all. Not at all. Because when I was growing up, all the young guys got into it. Because fishing, that was the thing. And not that I blame them, because like I say, there are, you read the rules were 88 days at sea, the length of the fish, the size mesh, and all that. So it kind of turns them away, I would think. But one thing we've got going, and I support, is that we've got an agriculture school going to be started up next year, I hope, in Stonington, all the local high schools. And I think we're going to have on-the-job training and all that, plus the class training. And I think by doing that, some of these young guys are going to see the inside of this and get into it. I think they will, because it's not the end of the world. Sometimes it looks that way, but I don't believe it is at all.
When you were saying about how during the war Stonington was booming.
Yeah.
Will you tell me about that?
It was booming because there were more boats, more people got into fishing. We had all the facilities here at the time. We had the boatyard to build boats. We had a repair shop, engine repair shop, electronic shop. We don't have any of that. We have engine shops close by, but we had all this right here in the borough. And it was really something. You want to haul your boat out and paint, you did it here, Stonington. Now you do it, you got to go to Providence, you got to go to Point Judith. There isn't a railway here at all. But during the war, like I say, with the shore jobs pay being so low, and the fisherman's pay in comparison being so high, naturally it was a booming thing compared to all other industries. God, we made more money than most anybody I could think of that worked ashore at the time, during the 40s mainly. And then it started to change after that. Fishing went down. Some of the people sold their boats. Like I said before, people ran other jobs ashore because the pay was good. Benefits, we don't have benefits. You make your own. Retirement, you make your own. If you don't, when you get my age, you're done. You got to do all this on your own. So people ran, which you can't blame them. They got all these benefits, the health care, and the whole works. So for them reasons, I think that's why the fleet went from 40 boats, I think, in the 40s during the war, down to, we had 9 at one time, 9 draggers. And that might have been maybe 50, something like in the late 50s. And then we come up from 9, we might have today 18, 20 maybe but bigger boats too. People got nicer boats, better equipped boats. So we come up. We seem to be holding our own now. We're doing all right, you know. But for a while there, it looked like everything was going to go. When it got down to 9 draggers, I was one of them. That's all we had. Then people start building boats again, and bigger boats, and that's where we got where we are today. And now, of course, the government's buying some of them back because there's too many boats, you know, on the East Coast. And they figure that's part of the problem of being the ocean being overfished. So anyway, the future, I think, I'm optimistic, I think. And I feel very good about that agriculture school. I like to see the young get in, because it's a good life, but you have to like it, you got to love it, you got to get it in your blood. You can't be afraid of long days, hard work, you know. But I think if you get into and see the advantages too, you know, working for yourself, your own boss, even when you work for somebody, you're practically your own boss, and the challenges and all that. You know, if you like it, it's a good life. And I like to express you're free as a bird. It's just a nice feeling being on the ocean, to me. Always was. Yeah, with all its storms and everything, it's still a nice feeling to be out there. You think straight, you're making a living, you're doing something you like, and it's just a good life, as far as I'm concerned. Yeah. So you shoot questions. I don't know. I'm running out.
No. You talked about the Rosemary Arp, and I wonder if you could tell me the story about her, how you got her, and what, you know, the story of your time together with that boat.
Well, I worked on a Carolyn Dennis. That was my uncle's boat. I went on a Carolyn Dennis. I was 1947. I was 16 years old. And I worked on there till I went in the Army, 52. I come out 55. And I come back, by the way, with a wife and my oldest daughter. Got married in Germany. So it was a little change when I got back, because then I had a wife and a daughter, and I had my second daughter. She came a little later. So things had changed. We were trip fishing. Like, we'd leave the dock, we'd be gone 10, 12 days. So where it didn't bother me before, when I was single, then it did. I'd hardly ever see the kids, be home a couple of days, back again. We're usually fishing down around New Bedford, Nantucket. We'd go into port most nights, but we wouldn't be home, you know. So, and then we started fishing up here. This is all on the Carolyn Dennis. Then in the 60s, I decided to buy my own boat. In fact, with my uncle, we both bought it, the Rosemary R. That was named after Joe Rendero's daughter, Rosemary Rendero. She's quite a girl. She's got her own boat. She fishes, you know. She's quite a fisherman herself, in her own with lines, you know, hand lines. She catches all kinds of fish out there, tuna fish and striped bass and all that. But anyway, that boat was named after her. And Joe was running it at the time, and his brother had another boat, the America. And so I bought, my Uncle Denny and I bought this off Joe's father. Joe and them went lobstering for a while, I guess. Then, of course, they come back, dragging. But anyway, I bought in 1968. And I always liked the boat. It was a good boat. And she was a big boat in its day, 63 foot. So, and she did a lot. She did everything I raised all my kids. The money everything I've done was through this boat, you know. It was a good boat to me. It took me back and forth. We've been in enough storms with her. And she was a good boat. And then towards the end, I had her 20-some years. Well, 63 to 93, 20 years. No, 25 years. Right? Yeah. It's 25 years.
63 or 68?
68
Okay.
to 93. 25 years. So, and then that's when I decided I was going to get out. You know, the boat, she was old. She was built 47. So she was pushing 50 in the late 40s. And, you know, money after money to keep the boat up. So coming towards the last couple of years, 3 years, I was getting my wages out of it, but all the money the boat made, did all the boat share, was going back to keep the boat up. So then I had the other one, the newer boat, and I had John on there. He was doing good with that one. So I said, being my age and all, I said, I think I've had enough. So then I sold it. And then this guy, Tom, from Point Judith, can't think of his last name now, but he bought it. And he was going longlining with it. So he only had about 3 months. So I come in the door one morning. I saw it leave. I drove down the end of the point when he took it out of here, you know. So the last time I see it gone, because she was a good boat to me. So then he called. I come in this kitchen. I saw my wife's face. I knew something was wrong. She says, Tom just called. They're all right. They got off. The boat sunk. So I was happy he got off. Him and his son-in-law were on it. And I guess he had vibration, something in the wheel, but whatever happened, I don't know. But it's whether it popped the plank or what. 10 o'clock at night, I guess they were sitting in the pilot house talking. And then the engine slowed down, so evidently the alarm didn't go off, or I don't know what happened. But the engine was underwater. So this at night. So they had to get off. They went in the raft. They were picked up 4 hours later or something like that. At night, they had a flare. One boat almost ran them down. Didn't see them. Then another boat out of Point Judith, they were on their way home. And this was out, maybe 30 miles from land where that happened. So then they picked them up. So I called them up, and I had to go, paperwork and stuff with them. So I drove to Point Judith. And I don't have the model. The model's down on the dock, the model of the Rosemary R. But I used to have rosary beads around my, near the wheel, in the wheelhouse, I just had them wrapped around the knob there, So he took them with him. I didn't know that. And then when I went down to see him, he says, hey, I got some for you. I says, what? He gave me my rosary beads back. He said, we took them with us. So I'm a believer naturally. I thought that was really something. So I have the model of the Rosemary R, and I always keep the rosary beads in the model. It's usually right here, but they used it for the blessing of the fleet. They had the models in the church, so I let them use the model. It's an identical model, beautiful, of the boat. But I thought that was quite a story, too, with the rosary beads. Yeah, I still have them. I'll have them forever. But they got saved. That was the main thing. The boat, of course, I felt bad about that. But she was getting old. When they pushed 50, wooden boat, it's getting kind of over the hill, I think. So that's what happened with that. But it's quite a story with that. She did everything for me. Both storms we were in. We're in quite a few storms with her. And the others that ran at Joe, she was quite a boat for everybody. For Joe and people that had it before that even. But she's history now. She's on the bottom. There's quite a few boats on the bottom. Wooden boats. Yeah. Well, all these. They're all laying down. Yeah.
And do you mean Joe Rendero? Is there a Joe Rendero Senior or
No?
No, this is Joe who I know.
Yeah.
And
he was running a boat when we bought it from his father. He was running this one. His father had two boats, the Rosemary R and the America. And one son ran one son ran the other. Then I guess they were lobstering for a few years. They tried that. Then they come back and bought the bigger boats, But she was a good boat for them and for me. I could never. That was my pride and joy right there. Said the name years ago, she was built in New Jersey, but Johnny Pont, a fellow lived out of here, he had it built, and she was called the Our Gang at the time. And they changed the name, Rosemary R. I wouldn't change the name. I'm superstitious. But they did, which I shouldn't be, but I am. So I liked the name anyway. I thought it was a pretty name, so I wouldn't have changed it. But for the other reason, I wouldn't anyway. Superstitious.
What's that?
Change the name of a boat. That says bad luck. It's a lot of bad luck things. That's one of them. Turning a hatch upside down is another. Whistling on a boat. That's a lot of it's crazy, but you'd be surprised how many fishermen besides me that are superstitious. There's many of them. Many, many, many. Some won't admit it. They are. Of course, others are not, but most are. Most fishermen are. Yeah.
What are some of the other superstitions?
Oh, God, there's so many. The hatch, the whistling, a woman on a boat. They say that's bad luck. Some people say that.
Period.
Yeah. It costs women a fish on some boats. Not many, but I don't believe that. And we have women go on a boat, like the Blessing of the Fleet. They all go on a boat. So I don't. Although I'm superstitious, I don't believe that one. There's others. I can't think of them all. But a lot of it's just foolish things that maybe something happened that day, just a coincidence, I guess. So, black cat. I know a fisherman one time, black cat, crossed his path on the way to the boat. He didn't go out that day. That's the truth. One of the old timers. He didn't go out. Turned around, went back home. That's how bad that can get. I don't think I'm that bad, but I know somebody who was years ago, one of the old timers. Yeah, that was another one, yeah. So.
Are there particular, like some of these old timers that you've mentioned, are there any of them that you have stories about them, characters down on the docks who were, really renowned fishermen, or just stories about any of these people that you remember growing up with, or came, who also may have been fishermen alongside of you? Just.
Oh, gee, I don't know. What do you mean exactly? I don't.
Well, it sounds like some of these people that you fished with or that you might have looked up to, were pretty major characters.
Yeah.
They had to be able to survive.
Oh, there was all kinds of characters. There was the jokesters. Sometimes you go down in the morning, they nail you. Couldn't take your line off the dock. They'd nail your lines. That was one of them. There was jokesters all over the place, pulling jokes like that. That was one I'll never forget. Because that's quite a feel in the morning, especially a cold morning. You go to flip the line off, you can't. You go up, it's nailed. It's all nailed to the dock. So that happened once in a while. And then there was all this, somebody dragged up a woman's clothing, underwear, so put it up on my rigging, hung it up without me knowing it, right? So I'm taking out a fish at the Stein and Town dock. People are exactly doing what you're doing. They're sitting there looking up, laughing, And I looked up, I thought, oh, for crying out loud. I said, somebody's joking around. And the woman says, yeah, right. So she thought I'd put him up there, I guess. But that's happened. But there's been a lot of that, a lot of joking around, different things, Sometimes it tell somebody, send them on a wild goose chase a little bit. I've seen that happen a lot. But anyway, we've had some in particular. This Manny Madeira used to joke around all the time, different things. when they're hanging around the docks, just pull jokes on people. All kinds of jokes. But them are the ones that stood out, mainly with me anyway. Yeah. There was a lot of horsing around. A lot of joking around jokes. Years ago, there used to be gambling on the dock, dice, cards, a lot of that. That got big, too. Wives step in and, oh, boy. Guy get his pay and lose part of it or most of it. There was a lot of that. You don't see that today. But then, there was more hanging around the docks then, than there is today.
So tell me some stories about the gambling that you remember. What was that scene like?
The scene, well, there was an old building down there. The guys would get together, maybe 10, 15 of them, maybe, sometimes more. And they'd be there for hours, just rolling the dice up against the wall. And once in a while, I see a wife come down real mad, looking for a husband. See that a lot. Then the other thing there was a lot of then that there isn't so much of today was in the bars. We had like 5 or 6 bars in Stein. Today there's only one. And a lot of fishermen went there. Drank, stories. And again, everything's fishermen. And it seemed like there was more drinking in them days than there is today at the bars. They had the lobster pot, of course the Portuguese Club, it's still there today. But not as many fishermen. There's still some, but it's not like it was then. Then you go in a place and all you see is a bunch of smoke and fishermen and storytelling and once in a while an argument. There was, but there was a lot of that. You'd come in, first place I had a couple too many. So I thought we didn't have a cat. She loved cats. The last cat got hit by a car. So I got this little black kitten, put it under my shirt, come up the stairs, and she started rah, 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 rah. So I pull it out. Boy, she mellowed like a cat. I got away with that one. She'll know that story. I got away with it. That's what I did, honest, because I knew she would. But there was a lot of that then, where there isn't today. Not as much anyway. Usually guys that hang around boats, have a beer or something, but not. Then there was quite a bit of heavy-duty drinking after you come in off a trip. And the only other part I've seen a lot of that, too, is New Bedford, when we fish down there. All the fishermen there, you go in bars, And that story I read, too, that Perfect Storm, I don't know if you read that.
I've heard a lot
Quite a book. And that's true. They all congregate in bars and the storms they were in and all. It's a sad story, but it was good. It was identical, I think, to where we used to be here years ago, more so than today. They'd all meet together. And all. It's a good story. Yeah. So, and then the other thing I didn't talk about is the blessing, of course. Blessing of the fleet. We come out with that, 1954. We just had our 44th annual blessing of the fleet. And a few of the guys got together. There's still a couple left that got in, they had one in Gloucester, I think, and they had it down south. So they thought it'd be a good idea to have it here, so they did. I was in Germany, 54. My first year with the blessing was 55. And it was small then, but then it got bigger. And it was in memory of all deceased fishermen. And pray to God to have a good coming year and protection of the fleet. So that grew and grew and grew. It's a big thing now. It's ranked one of the top events in the state of Connecticut. So I got involved with that. I was always involved, but I got involved in the committee part of it, running it, help running it, 20, 25 years ago, I guess. And I enjoy every minute of it. We get set up. We start already maybe January lining up the bands. This year we had 5 bands. And you draw quite thousands of people there.
This is here in Stonington?
Oh, yeah.
Is it Mystic
No,
Answer?
it was
Stonington?
just Stonington. Yeah.
I went to the blessing up in Provincetown. That's the only one I ever.
Oh, yeah.
They have a big blessing
Yeah.
up there.
We have it's a 2-day event. It's Saturday night. We have dancing on the dock, music, New England lobster bake, and then little necks, clam chowder, hamburger, hot dogs, and all kinds of food. Portuguese sweetbread. We have a woman who bakes all this. And they sell all this, and this all helps pay for the blessing itself, because we have police protections, latrines, and insurance, and the band. The parade alone costs $5,000-6,000 just for the bands, you know. So we have Saturday night to pay for this, and a lot of the wives participate. We have one, John's wife. She takes care of the T-shirts. She's done real well doing that, and donates all the money. Frances Medeiros, a cousin of mine, she does all the sweetbread, and she donates everything to the fishermen. So it's really blossom. And then Sundays, we have a 10:30 a.m. Mass at St. Mary's Church, a fisherman's Mass. And the bishop has been coming himself to say Mass, Bishop Hart. We used to have a Bishop Riley, he's in Worcester, I think, Mass. Bishop Daniel Riley. He went over there somewhere in that. He was well liked. And now it's Daniel Hart, another very nice person. So they, Sunday it kicks off with a 10:30 a.m. Mass. And then we get the parade. After Mass, we all come out, start lining up the parade. That gets underway at 1. And that goes right through town, up around, perform in front of the church, St. Mary's Church. And then after that, we have a ceremony at the town dock in front of the Fisherman's Memorial, which is there. I don't know if you've been there yet.
I'll go down
It's
there.
right there, and then there's a stone there with 32 names on it. So the bishop and the priest, they say a short sermon there. Then they all board the boats. The bishop goes on. We have the Lady Helen. She's a flagship. We were, when I had the Rosemary R for years, I was like 20 years a flagship. And then, of course, she went. I asked Charlie Fellows, he owns the Lady Helen, and he's been doing it ever since. Does a good job. So we go on in, they bless each boat individually. We have maybe 20 boats total, lobster boats and draggers, that come out and they're blessed individually one by one. Then they go out in the harbor, and we have a broken anchor, where I usually get people of deceased fish parents or wives or relatives. A fisherman lost at sea. That's what that broken anchor's for, who died at sea. So that we go out in the harbor, they form a semicircle, all the boats, all decorated, you know, the flags and all. Then the Lady Helen will go in the middle. They'll say a service at sea in memory of all the fishermen who died at sea. Then these people throw the broken anchor. That's the end of the blessing. The boats come back in, and there's a concert till 6. Then it ends. Some of the boats don't participate because of insurance reasons. You know, there might be especially the bigger boats, because the risk is so high if somebody gets hurt, or, you know, people going on the boats. So, but we still get I'd say about 20 boats. And we don't exclude anybody. Like, I'll have somebody call me up from Mystic, they got a pleasure boat. Hey, I like to have my boat blessed. I said, bring it down. And they bring it. You know, we don't say no to anybody. And we have Coast Guard out here. We have Stonington Police, Groton Police boats, just in case, you know. But knock on wood, 40-some years we've never had any disaster. We've had minor injuries, but nothing real big. So I'm very much for that, and I think and I hope it'll continue forever, because that's a big thing that most of us all believe in.
Can you tell me a little bit about stories around the connections between the church and fishermen? I mean, the blessing sounds like it's one of those times when that really comes together.
Yeah. All right. When you mention religion, there's Catholics, there's Protestants, there's Jewish. We have them all here. But one thing I've noticed, Baptists, one thing I've noticed, that when we have the blessing, it's mixed. It's not just Catholic. It's mixed. We had a Jewish fellow, Bud Jacobs. Boy, that man did so much for the blessing, you know. So, and he went to church, you know. He's not Catholic. This Baptist, Luke Cajon, he was a Baptist. Participated in every blessing. He passed away. He was 60 years old, but every blessing. So it's a mix. It's not just Catholic. It's, I don't know, the belief, I don't know, everybody seems to like it. They don't stay out because of a religion, you know. But the church, the name of it is really St. Mary's Church, Blessing of the Fleet Fund. That's where the money goes to pay for everything. And the chaplain, the fisherman's chaplain, is Catholic, Reverend Gagan. He's the pastor, you know, the chaplain for the fishing fleet. But I think there's a line drawn there. The people don't just go there and stop because of religion. Because I've seen it over the years. You name the religion, they've all been there. Yeah, so that's nice, I think. Because I think when you come to religion, my belief is there's one God, no matter how you worship it. That's my feeling on that. And I think that's been true here.
But it also seems to me as though the church must have been a real source of comfort, you know, for the fishermen, but also maybe for their families.
Oh, yeah.
And what are do you have stories about that, or experiences in your own family or friends that you knew about people's devotion and
participation and all?
Yeah.
In the blessing?
Not even just in the blessing, but in the church.
Oh, yeah. There's a lot of that, sure. In all the churches around here. But, oh, yeah, there's a lot of it. St. Mary's, I'm sure of that. The Mass alone, you'd be surprised at people that are there. My whole family, I mean, they don't go to church every day, but they're there that day. My daughters were there. My son was there. Well, my wife was the only one that didn't go because she was watching the kids. But they were all there, everyone. And they don't go, I'm sure of that, every week to church. And there's a lot of that on a fisherman's Mass, yeah. And I think during the year, there's lots of fishermen's wives go to church every Sunday. You know, and that some are in church groups and things like that. Yeah. There's a lot of that.
Yeah, I really haven't had a chance to talk to any of the wives.
No.
You know, because so many of the sort of dramatic fisherman stories are from the people that are on the boats, but that seems to me like a whole other story of just what it's like for the...
Well, that's right. That's right. I'm sure it is. Like my wife, I mean, you could talk to her, but I know one thing. I brought her here. We got married in Germany. We got here in '55 with a 1-year-old daughter, right? We went, my grandmother's house. I couldn't wait to fish. Oh, God, I've been away 3 years. I couldn't wait. I left her home with my grandmother. My mother was working. My mother could talk English, but my grandmother couldn't. Talk Portuguese only. My wife couldn't talk Portuguese. So they were together all day long. One couldn't, they got by somehow. That went on for a year before I, rented a house. And I went fishing. And they're gone 7, 8, 10 days. And she had with all that in the beginning there. So that was kind of hard, I think. Well, I imagine she'd have some stories. I think any wife will. Probably different from mine a little bit. They're on this side of it. While you're out and all this. I was out in a storm one time. Whew, even today, she'd probably holler at me about it. 'Cause we were in Greenport, and we left to come home. One of the worst storms I've ever been in. We shouldn't have left. But we did. And once we left, we couldn't turn around and go back. So that was quite a wild, wild day. It was a nor'wester in the wintertime blowing. I think they clocked it here at 80. But we had plenty. It was only a 3-hour ride. It took us like seven hours, I think. And we were making ice, with it. That was a bad one. She reminded me of that for years. Boy, I catch hell on that one.
For coming back.
Yeah, we should have stood there. That was dumb of me. When you're in a port, you don't leave in a storm because you don't have to. All we had to do was stay there till the storm was over the next day or whatever. So, I don't know, I got this crazy notion that fair wind, almost fair wind. I said, so I asked John, Tom, what do you guys think? Hey, he said, it's up to you. I said, oh, okay, let's go. So we did. And lucky we're here today. That's the worst storm I've ever been into.
What happened?
Well, it was just a wild, wild ride coming. And anything could have happened why we'd never get here. Not with them seas. And then you couldn't see, you know, that there was ice on the windows and ice on the rigging. And I was using the radar. And the wind kept shearing us off, trying to pick up a lee of the land. And the wind would shear us off all the seas because you had to run off on the seas. You didn't want to catch one broadside. It was a wild day. We lost our hatch covers from the Lazarette, which isn't a good thing because if any sea breaks, fill you up with the water. It was a bad day. And I'll never forgive myself for that one. Because just shouldn't have left. But that's how accidents happen. Not an accident. I wouldn't have called that an accident. I wouldn't be around to say anything, but it's not an accident when you do that. I don't know why I did it, but I did. And when you mentioned wise, boy, for years she reminded me of that.
How would she remind you?
Oh, every now and then if the weather wasn't quite right or something, she'd bring that up. Or if I was out in some kind of weather, she thought, boy, where were you and all this kind. Remember that day? Blah, blah, blah. And she'll always say this, and she's right. Says, you could have killed them two young guys. And you know it is. When you run on a boat, the responsibility is yours. And no matter what they said, hey, it's up to you. It's my final decision. I never should have done that. Never. We've been caught in them, you know. That's one thing. When you're out and the weatherman was wrong, you got caught in a storm, then you got to get in. But when you're in a safe harbor, you don't do what I did. So that was a no-no. But thank God we made it. But that was a wild day. I'll never forget that. Yeah.
So this is the only painting we haven't talked about. What's that story about?
That was a bad storm, the snowstorm. I was on a Carol and Dennis. That had to be in late 50s probably. Them days you got caught in more storms. And sometimes everybody did it. They say, we make one more tow, you know. And that one more tow got us in more trouble. Then you get, you know, some of them storms move fast. You know, it'd be nice weather. Say, we'd make one more. So you do. Then sure enough, we'd be caught and then you have to bucket in. That storm there, we were on our way to New Bedford. And we're just making a hen and chickens lightship there. Seemed like we'd never make it, you know. We had to keep slowing down on the seas. And my uncle, we was all in the pilot house, three of us. Because usually a storm like that, you know, you're banging around, rolling around, and you're not going to be down below. So come up and see what's going on. But anyway, that was one of them cases where something go wrong, you're done. There's no question. And he was a good captain. He knew how to handle a boat. There's no problem with that. But even him, he was kind of nervous that night. He said, "What do you think? We turn around, go to Newport?" My opinion. I said, "Boy, I don't know. It don't look good here, you know." But anyway, he finally decided to keep going. So we got in, but boy, that was a long, long ride. It's normally about an hour and a half ride from Hen and Chicken's lightship to New Bedford. That I don't know what it took, but a lot longer than an hour and a half. That was one of them northeasters that crept up quick, you know, the coast, heavy snow, couldn't see nothing. We had radar then, I think. Yeah, we had radar. But we've been in them without radar before. But that night, we had the radar. But that was a wild night. That's where anything can go. If something goes haywire, you're done. You know, any queer seas, double seas, start leaking, take on water. So many things can happen. And he was nervous, so was I. And I'm sure it's happened to boats where the last thing was the same feeling we had, only they didn't make it. I'm sure of that. We never hear from them again, that's for sure. I'm sure it was the same feeling. And I'm sure most fishermen have all had that. More so years ago than today, I think. Because today they're bigger and better boats. And the weather reports, as much as we knock them, the weatherman's always wrong. They're better today than there was then. Because then it was terrible. God, we got caught in a lot of storm. Yeah.
So how did you describe it to this painter to get him to?
I describe it basically what I'm telling you, in the seas, the visibility, the heavy snow. It was northeast wind, I estimated 40, 50, 45, 50 mile an hour maybe. We didn't have a wind gauge, but it was way too much for us, 60-foot wooden boat. So I described it to him, and how we wasn't barely moving, seas breaking all over the boat. And that's what he come up with as a painting. Thought he did a good job. And that's supposed to be the lightship there, with that glowing at night. Seemed like we'd never pass it. And it was. It looked something like it is there. It was wild night. And that was night. It was like 10, 11 at night, midnight, because we got in the morning, New Bedford. And we were all alone, no other boats. But when you think of it, we always felt safe or better with another boat around. But in reality, when you think about it, if something happened, what's another boat going to do, really? In weather like that, nothing. But somehow you felt better with somebody else around. And then we had dories in them days, no rafts. It would be almost impossible to get in a dory. And if you did, the weather would get you anyway, the cold, you know. Where a raft today, you have a chance. So I described that. All these paintings I described to him, and that's what he come up with. Like the Carolyn Dennis, I described starboard side, that's how she listed, things like that. And he got it. Got it right.
You got the clear, because I remember you saying it was a clear sky, wasn't that?
Yeah,
stormy?
no, it wasn't. This one was stormy. This, of course, the light, that was a squall we went to. And that was a battle. That was a rough day. So my son, I'm going to give him all these pictures. I'm going down in October 10th. He's getting married. So he, of all people, he asked me to be best man. So I'm going to be the best man. I've never had a tuxedo on in my life. This will be a first. But one of the best things I think ever happened was he graduated college and he came here naturally, didn't have a job or anything, and I needed a man. So I said, this was like April, May, or whatever. But he fished with me for 6 months. My last 6 months that I fished. And I got to know, and I think he got to know me, probably more so in them 6 months than all our life before that. He was like 22 or whatever. He's 28 now, yeah. Yeah, he graduated 22. And we got to know one another better because we was yakking all the time while we're towing, you know. You got sometimes an hour or two to chew the fat. So to me, that was the best part of my career fishing, was having him. And he was pretty good at it. I think he would have made a good fisherman. But I knew he had other things in mind too, you know, when I sold the boat. And that wasn't for him, not that boat. She was too old, you know. So the way everything worked out now, he went into computers. He got a very good job. He's working down in Atlanta, Georgia. So it worked out for him, worked out for me. But I think if he was here, he'd tell you what I'm saying. He enjoyed that. Yeah, we got real close. Just 6 months. Yeah, closer than I've ever been to him. We've been close ever since. He didn't really know me, and I didn't really know him till we worked together. Sometimes they say father and son, they don't get along and all this. We got along fine. But I think he was curious to what I did all these years. And finally he got on, and we made a few bucks. He enjoyed it. He was happy. But it worked out fine too, because I don't think, he wasn't cut out, I don't think, like me, time and away from home and all this stuff. But But he surprised me. Did a good job. I think he could have picked it up, you know. But it worked out for him too. He met a girl down there and got married. And he's got a very good job, and she works the same company. So we're going down there October for that. Put a tux on.
What are your? But it sounds like that was a big deal for the last year of fishing. What else stands out in your mind as in terms of just how you decided that you were going to stop, and what it was like to do that?
To stop?
Yeah.
You know, funny thing, I didn't plan it. I didn't plan retirement. I always told those close to me, my cousins, Carol, my wife, and them, I'll be on a fish till they carry me away or till they drop dead. But I always said that. And then I don't know what did it. I was 63. The boat was getting tired. I knew I had to spend a lot of money. I was too old to get another new boat. I had John on the Seafarer. He was doing fine. So I said, just December 13th, I decided that's it. But I really think a lot of this took its toll. I changed my last few years as far as being a fisherman, or what I did and what I just changed. I know I did. I could feel it myself because of all this stuff. I think it finally caught up with me, something. So I was spur of the moment. I said, that's it, I'm all done. And until now, 5 years, almost 5 years. But I'm still connected, though. I think that makes a big difference.
So what are you doing?
I make all those nets and repair them, knee repair. I work on a boat, maintenance. I'm a shore captain. I'm errand boy. John will say, I want something from Point Judith or New London or whatever, New Bedford. I run down, pick it up. But the main thing I like doing is working on the nets. I still do that. I do it right here in the yard, most of it. But when he comes in, like this afternoon, I'll be down, give him a hand, taking the fish off. And then we check the net. The other day they ripped, which he doesn't do very often, but they ripped. I went down, fixed that up. But that I like. Then when I'm not doing that, I fool around the house. I painted the outside. I painted all this inside, the whole house, every inch of it, upstairs, down, every room. I got to keep busy. But the main thing I like is being connected with the boat and with the association and with John. I like working with him. And we've been, like I say, together since he's 47. That's 20 years we've been together. 20. Yeah. No, 30 years. What am I talking about? God, time flies. Yeah, 30 years. He's 47. He come right out of high school. He worked for me since then, with the exception of he went to Vietnam a couple of years. But outside of that, he's been with me from day one, Rosemary R. And then I gave him, let him run the boat, the Seafarer. And he's doing real well. He's a good captain.
And does he own it, or you own it?
No, I still own it. Yeah, I kept it. Yeah, he runs it. So, but he's doing a very good job. Good, he's good at it. Yeah.
So you're sort of, for him, like your uncle was.
The same thing, really. Yeah. Yeah, I worked for my uncle for a long time, same as John did. And then I ran his boat. Towards the end there, he got sick. He got cancer, my uncle. He passed away young. He was 59. I didn't think it was young then, but boy, I do now. So, but yeah, basically it's about the same thing. He worked for me the same amount of time before running our own boat. Yeah.
So I think we're pretty well.
I talked, boy, I could talk sometimes.
Good, huh?
I hope it's all right.
So any other things that come to your mind of stories or people that you haven't told me about?
I don't think so. I think I pretty much covered most of it. Not all, I'm sure,
the
but
key drama.
most of it, yeah. Yeah. I think we got it. You want the truth, you want exactly how I feel. That's it, for better or for worse, that's how I feel. And it's all true, believe me, every bit of it. There might be more, but I can't. You got most of it, I guarantee you that. I'm sure you'll get more from these other guys, too. Because I'm sure they have quite a bit. Joe, Walt, I'm sure they have all kinds of stuff. Maybe I left out, they'll fill in, I guarantee you that. Yeah. Well, why, I don't know, but I'll tell.
Yeah, we're on.
All right. No, I always felt as the boat as being a person. That's basically what I want to say. And you always refer to it as she. Most people do. She was a good boat. You never hear, he's a good boat. She's a good boat. But they treat you so well, you know, like any person that treats you good. So, and you do feel. You're naturally, any disaster, you want the people off, you can always get a boat. But there's a feeling there, I lost the boat. There is a feeling there that kind of something goes with it when it goes. I worked on a Carolyn Dennis. I worked on a Carolyn Dennis for 18 years. She sunk. I watched her sink. I had that empty feeling, because so many memories with that boat. That boat could talk, wow, you know. And so many storms she brought us through and so on. And then when I heard about the Rosemary I had that same feeling again. Although I wasn't on it when she went, I didn't see it. But so many years, so many memories, you know. So that goes with it. Is it like a person? Yeah. Yeah, something about it.